Jesus way,
oh, the Jesus way,
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way,
Oh, the Jesus way,
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace begin with me. I'm gonna beat my sword
Gonna beat my sword
into a plow.
into a plow.
Gonna beat my sword
Gonna beat my sword
into a plow.
into a plow.
Gonna beat my sword into a plow. Christ is king in my life now. May his peace be.
The Church of the Brethren's monthly publication, Messenger, traces its beginnings back to 1851. Henry Kurtz was the publisher of the first issue of The Gospel Visitor. During the next 30 years, there were 33 different periodicals about the Church of the Brethren. Numerous consolidations and name changes occurred in the years leading up to 1883, when the first issue of The Gospel Messenger was published. Actually, it was not owned by the Church of the Brethren, but it was considered the official church paper. And in 1897, the church assumed ownership of the Brethren Publishing House. Hello, I'm Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. In 1965, Kenneth Morris brought some dramatic changes to the publication. He made it a bi-weekly magazine published twice a month, and it took on a completely different look, and it was renamed Messenger. As magazine publishing became increasingly more expensive, Messenger became a monthly publication in 1973. Now it's published 10 times each year with combined issues in January and February, as well as July, August. Today we have the privilege of meeting with Randy Miller, the interim editor of Messenger. Randy, thank you for being with us on Brethren Voices. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, it's great to have you here.
I can see that while I'm sitting in a studio in Portland, Oregon, and it's about 50 degrees outside, you're sitting in your front yard and it must be 70. It looks wonderful. Randy, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Have you always lived in Southern California?
Well, I've lived here since 1975. I came here to go to Laverne College, as it was known then. Now it's University of Laverne. But I grew up in several different places. I was born in Chicago, and we lived there 5 years, and then lived 5 years in Northern California in the Sacramento Valley. Lived in Gridley, attended the Live Oak Church of the Brethren, and after 5 years there, we moved to Champaign, Illinois, where my father was pastor of a Church of the Brethren in Champaign. And after 5 years there, we seemed to be just doing 5-year increments throughout my life, but after 5 years there, we moved up to Oak Brook and lived actually on the Bethany Seminary campus when it was in Oak Brook. We were 2 years actually on campus and 1 year house sitting for Byron Royer, who was a faculty member on the Bethany staff at the time. Well, my dad took some courses at Bethany and then also got his doctorate in religion at Chicago Theological Seminary. So it was 3 years there, and then in '72 out to Wenatchee, Washington, where my father became pastor of the Sunny Slope Church of the Brethren. And I lived there for 2 years, and then went into BVS, and I worked a couple of projects, really. The first was helping to coordinate National Youth Conference in 1974 when it was held in Glorieta, New Mexico, and then the latter part, really after the conference was over, I shifted and worked as a messenger intern, and that was a wonderful experience. You know, getting to work with Howard Royer, who was the editor at the time, and Kerman Thomason was the managing editor, and Ken Morse, who had been the editor, was still on the staff as a book editor. So I'm working with all these luminaries, you know, these great people, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I'd had an interest in journalism anyway, and then to have this opportunity to work with these guys whom I had known of really growing up in the church and attending annual conference pretty much every year because my father was a pastor. It was a wonderful opportunity. And then I came out here and sort of finished out my college, graduated from the University of Laverne, and I've been in this area ever since.
So Brethren Volunteer Service provided some nice benefits and made a difference in your life.
It really did. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to to serve, and working in Elgin, working at the general offices, was a great chance to as I say, rub shoulders with some of these people that I had known of and admired for years, and then just have a chance to really work with them and learn from them was terrific.
Had you taken some journalism classes in school?
Well, in high school, I took some writing courses, English composition and that kind of thing. In fact, that's where my interest in writing really was sparked. And I took some, I'd done some college in Wenatchee when I was there, living there for those 2 years in journalism. But really, working on the Messenger continued to sort of fan the flame of interest that I had in journalism, and that carried on as I went on to the University of La Verne. Then this was in the mid-70s, and at the time, Watergate had just happened, and journalists had really, investigative journalism was kind of a big thing then, and Woodward and Bernstein had written All the President's Men, and the movie came out, and so the idea that journalism could have a profound impact on society and on people's lives, and be a tool for shining a light on issues that needed to come out and be dealt with was really was appealing to me, and I thought that would be a worthwhile thing to pursue. So I majored in journalism at the University of La Verne with an emphasis in photography, but it was really focused on writing and editing, that kind of thing.
How long have you been the interim editor of Messenger?
That was in March of 2010. Walt Wilczek, who had been the editor up until that time, took on the post of campus pastor at Manchester College, and I became aware that the editor's chair was vacant, and was interested. I had been doing several kinds of journalism-related jobs. A lot of that was with World Vision International, the humanitarian relief and development agency, editing and doing journalism work for them. So had some background and experience working in publications, and when this became available, I contacted Wendy McFadden, the publisher, and we chatted, and I explored the possibility. But she explained to me that they have this policy that new staff people have to live in Elgin at the offices, and of course I'm pretty rooted here in California with family, and it would not really be practical or workable for me just to sort of pick up and move us all out there, with a son in high school and my wife teaching elementary school here in Upland. So I said, well, I don't know if this would work out. I really can't pull up stakes and just move back to Elgin. But I said, in the meantime, until you find somebody, if you have a need for any articles to be edited and so forth, I would be happy to be a consultant. And so she got back in touch with me and asked if I would be willing to serve in an interim capacity until they decide what to do beyond that. So that's kind of where things are at this point. And technically, I'm not a full-on staff member. I'm doing this on a contract basis, so that kind of works that way. Since I'm technically not staff, but it's the full-time work, but it's a contract, so it seems to be working, at least for now.
It must be a big responsibility to be the editor of a national publication.
Well, it's wonderful. As I mentioned before, growing up in the Church of the Brethren, I was aware of Messenger and aware of the responsibilities as much as you can be as a kid growing up that editing a publication like that carries, and being sort of the platform for dialogue in the denomination. Now sitting in this chair, after the likes of Ken Morrison, Howard Royer, and Kerman, and then Fletcher, Farrar, and Walt Wilczek. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill, and to me it's a tremendous honor to be doing this and to take the responsibility of nurturing the dialogue and maintaining the platform for dialogue that we have in the church, and trying to represent as many points of view as possible is a great honor and a great responsibility, and I'm enjoying it. It's a real pleasure for me to work with Wendy McFadden and the others back at the offices in Elgin who have some involvement in Brethren Press and the Messenger. So I'm enjoying it a great deal.
You are among some others we have interviewed on this program in the last 5 years who have been in BVS, and it has been an important part of their life.
Yeah, again, growing up in the Church of the Brethren, I was aware of BVS. It was just a part of something that's out there that when you come of age, when you get to be 18, you know, there's a choice. You know, you can go into BVS, or go on to college, or maybe do both somehow. And that's essentially what I ended up doing. I had always been attracted to the idea of doing some kind of volunteer service work. And back when I was coming of age back then, it was the tail end of the Vietnam War, and I was facing the dilemma of, you know, what do you do? Some friends of mine and relatives of mine had chosen the option of resisting the draft. I had a couple of cousins who did time in prison for resisting the draft and not cooperating with selective service. Friends of mine were convicted, who resisted the draft, were convicted. One friend from Washington State, Mike Stern, was sentenced to 3 years of community service. So a lot of friends and relatives and acquaintances were facing that, and I began to explore, you know, what would I do when it came my time, and I decided I would you know, register as a conscientious objector. And that was a time when they had the lottery system, and so depending on whether your number came up or not, you know, then you would be you know, forced to choose that way. Well, apparently my number was so high that I didn't actually have to make that choice, but I still wanted to do something. I still wanted to be involved in Brethren Volunteer Service, and so I did some college up in Wenatchee, Washington, and then went into BVS for, you know, and did the service that I was explaining, and then later on went on to Laverne and finished out my BA there, and then later got my master's in journalism at Cal State Fullerton. But anyway, that's kind of how that worked out.
Randy, we want to ask you about the process of putting Messenger together. But first, let's take a break and share with you a message from Brethren Volunteer Services.
This is a world full of options. It's like a never-ending buffet line. While all that I'm really needing is living water and the bread of life. So as I'm walking through this life, making choices, there is one thing I must never forget. This land of
Today we have the privilege of meeting with Randy Miller, the interim editor of Messenger. Randy, tell us about producing Messenger. What's it like?
Well, it's an ongoing process, really, and as you're working on an immediate issue, you're doing long-range planning for issues down the line, lining up contributors. Some articles we actually actively go out and ask people to write for us. Others are unsolicited; they come in, and so it's a process of working on the immediate, deadline, and then working toward future deadlines. And it's not like it ever stops. You just keep going from one issue to the next while you're doing short-term and long-range planning. So it works thanks to modern technology, with the internet, with email, telephones. It's you could be in Antarctica really and edit. Editing is kind of a solitary process in a lot of ways. It's good to have contact, and as much as modern technology allows that, it's great. I mean, it's no substitute really for actually being face to face with somebody, which I'm able to do from time to time going back to Elgin. But as far as actually editing the magazine is concerned, it's something that you can do thanks again to modern technology from just about anywhere.
I see you also have some copies of Messenger. Can you tell us how the cover is put together?
Well, yeah, we have a designer, Paul Stocksdale, who has designed, who's worked as the designer, the layout, graphic designer for the magazine for some time before I came on board. And so, when you see various covers of the Messenger, some people think maybe that the editor chooses that or seeks them out. Actually, we work with Paul. He's the one who comes up with several ideas for covers, and we go back and forth and work with him for covers as well as the interior design. But I really can't take much credit for the covers that are produced, because that's something that Paul comes up with, and then we work with him and come up with the final product, what it's going to look like. But I have to tip my hat to Paul, because he does such a great job of presenting, doing the graphic design and presenting the layout and the covers.
Randy, tell us about the staff of Messenger. How many people does it take to put this magazine together?
Well, we're all here, actually. No, in a sense, it's Wendy McFadden is the publisher, and so I work fairly closely with her by phone and email. And again, as I mentioned, Paul is the graphic designer, and so we're in touch with Paul fairly regularly. Cheryl Brumbaugh-Caford is responsible for producing Newsline, which you're probably familiar with. Much of the news that's generated, it's generated by her or gathered by her, and then we go through that and take what we need for the news section of Messenger. So it's I ultimately end up putting it together and working with Paul on the final layout. But so it's Wendy and me and Cheryl. Diane Stroyak handles the subscriptions and then kind of the nuts and bolts. Karen Stocking is on the staff, works with Wendy, and takes care of again some of the nuts and bolts aspects back in Elgin. But as far as the actual editing and so forth, it's pretty much up to me to do that.
The membership of the Church of the Brethren is spread across a wide variety of beliefs. So does Messenger have an editorial policy?
I suppose if there was an editorial policy as such, it's to try to serve as a Messenger. We try to provide a platform for dialogue and discussion of issues that are critical in the church, in the life of the denomination. Try to be representative of as many sides as possible. Try to present points of view that are presented in a way that is respectful. as you might imagine, we get all kinds of things coming in, and most contributions are respectful, or even though people may have strong opinions, they tend to be respectful and so forth. But occasionally, if something comes in that is not presented in a way that's honoring the dignity of somebody with whom they disagree, then we may ask them to revise it or rework it, or just not carry it. We do have we do require that people who contribute things recognize the dignity and of the people that they're addressing.
Randy, there are so many different contributors to the Messenger. Can you tell us how the articles are chosen?
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, some articles come in unsolicited. Some articles we actually go out and try to gather. So it's a combination of both of those things. We have certain topics that we try to address throughout the year, and so if we're aware of somebody who's has some involvement or authority or expertise in that particular area, we may seek them out and see if they'd be willing to contribute. So it's a combination of those things, really. And letters just come in as they will. People will generally write in response to something they've read in the magazine, and sometimes they're full of praise, and sometimes they're full of criticism, as we would expect.
Randy, I've really appreciated your editorials. Where do you get your ideas?
They can come from just about anywhere, really. Some months back, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson came and spoke at the University of Laverne, and I attended his address and was struck by what he had to say, of course, but also struck by the fact that, here was the grandson of one of the most well-known leaders, pacifists in the world, history of the world, coming and speaking at a university that's one of the 6 institutes of higher learning of one of the historic peace denominations. And so here was somebody coming from the outside talking to us about how to live peaceably. I thought that was rather interesting, and so that sparked my thinking about us as a denomination. Are we, to what extent are we still adhering to our pacifist tradition and heritage? To what extent are we speaking out and addressing those issues the way we once did? I try to, in my editorials, I try to raise questions and get people thinking. So I raised that. Are we, here's somebody from the outside coming in and speaking to us at one of the Brethren-related colleges about pacifism, So where are we in this? Are we still the prophetic voice that we once were? And if not, why?
How do you deal with criticism in the articles and letters to the editor?
Well, I mean, I think it comes with the territory. Like I say, Messenger is, as I see it, as I think we all see it, is a platform for dialogue for the denomination. It's an opportunity for different points of view to be expressed and for people to be aware of some of the thinking behind the different subjects, the different issues. So, it's the magazine itself is an area where people can express different points of view, and I think as long as they do that in a way that's respectful of people, that's fine. I mean, and I understand that people are going to be critical of something that's
some
written,
brethren voices.
Somebody who may have written a feature, or of me, something that I may have written in an editorial. They might disagree with that, and I expect that. So,
with the church holding special response hearings at this time regarding involvement of gays in the church, do you anticipate that forbearance is where we're headed to maintain unity in the Church of the Brethren?
I think we've had a tradition of that in the Church of the Brethren. There has been, in our dialogues, in our discussion of various issues throughout our history as a denomination, we've seen our predecessors exercising forbearance in their discussions. Now, it hasn't always been the case. There have been times when we have voiced very strong opinions and perhaps been less tolerant than we might have been. But I think we do have a history of it in general, and I think at this time in our life as a denomination, there's even more need for it. There's a need to exercise tolerance, respect, forbearance as we address some of the difficult issues facing us at this time in our denomination. I think we're capable of it. I think we can do it. I think it's good for us to be reminded of that heritage and to be reminded of just the need to be respectful, to treat each other in a Christ-like manner, to treat each other as Jesus would treat us.
Randy, thank you for being with us on Brethren Voices.
My pleasure. I'm honored to be a part of this.
As a special note, we have just been informed that Brethren Voices will be a featured article in the March edition of Messenger. We're going to rush home and look at it. By the way, there are photos by Kay Geyer, who we've interviewed previously on this program. Thank you for joining us on Brethren Voices. By the way, our April program will feature the Brethren Disaster Ministry's continuing work in Haiti. I was recently privileged to be able to attend a work camp there, and I would like to share the videos and interviews I did with you on our April program. In the meantime, this is Brent Carlson for Brethren Voices, wishing you peace.
Begin with me. All those who tread the path he trod, all those who tread the path he trod, all those who tread the path he trod shall be called the friends of God. May his peace begin with me. Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace